Alright, let's be honest. Stronghold Crusader Definitive Edition might be over 2 decades old, but it still goes hard. Whether you're building your empire in the scorching heat of the desert or holding the line with just a few archers and a dream, this game knows how to keep you on your toes. With a massive roster of units split between the barracks and the mercenary post, plus siege engines that can make or break your defense, it's easy to get overwhelmed. And don't even get me started on how you're expected to manage an economy while fighting off waves of enemy troops at the same time. So if you're scratching your head wondering whether to invest in a bunch of swordsmen or go full desert warfare with Arabian bowmen, don't worry, we've got you covered. In this video, we're ranking every single unit in Stronghold Crusader based on their overall usefulness, strength, and versatility. From the cheapest meat shields to the heavy-hitting elites, let's break down which units are truly worth your gold and which ones are better left back at the castle. Let's get into it. I'm quickly moving on to the video, and I'm ranking units in Stronghold Crusader Definitive Edition. Before we start, if you enjoy these types of tier list videos, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. Enjoy watching!
My friends, only 0.1% of viewers subscribe. If you like this type of content, please do not forget to subscribe to the channel. Thank you in advance for your support.
The units in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Spearmen, Laddermen, Portable Shields, and Arabian Bowmen. You ever look at your army lineup and think, wow, I've made some terrible life choices? Yeah, welcome to the D tier of Stronghold Crusader Definitive Edition units, the scrap heap of the battlefield. These units technically exist, but if you're relying on them, you're probably already halfway to watching your castle burn. Let's kick things off with the Spearmen. Cheap? Yes. Effective? Absolutely not. These guys are what you get when your economy is flatlining and you still feel obligated to defend your keep. They have no armor, barely any attack power, and they require spears crafted at the pole turner. So not only are they weak, but they also tie up your industry. The one thing they're kind of okay at is knocking ladders off your walls. So if your opponent is a ladderman enthusiast, sure, toss a few spearmen up there. Otherwise, you're better off sending your villagers into battle with pitchforks. Same outcome, just cheaper. Speaking of laddermen, oh boy, these guys are like your drunk cousins trying to crash a party by climbing over the fence. They get picked off by archers faster than you can say siege fail. In theory, they help your infantry scale walls. In practice, they make excellent pincushions for defending forces. And even if they manage to set the ladder, only a select few units, like macemen, can even make decent use of it. Pro tip, just blow up the walls or send in some stealthy assassins. Your gold deserves better. Now, let's talk portable shields. These little contraptions look like they were made during Arts and Crafts Hour. The idea is solid. Shield your troops from arrows as they move in. The reality? You're moving at the pace of a turtle while the enemy turns your army into kebabs. It's usually a better idea to park some catapults outside the walls and let them do the heavy lifting. Charging under fire behind plywood is not a war-winning strategy. Ah yes, the Arabian Bowman. A professional mercenary archer, which sounds cool until you check the price tag. 75 gold each. That's not just expensive, that's I had to sell my cow and my grandma expensive. Sure, they shoot well and look slick doing it, but when it comes to ranged units, quantity usually trumps quality. A swarm of slingers might not hit hard, but they'll fill the air with rocks so thick your enemies will forget what the sun looks like. Honestly, most D-tier units share one tragic trait. They sound like they'd be useful in a very specific situation. But those situations either rarely happen or can be handled better with stronger, more reliable troops. Like, yes, spearmen can stop laddermen, but if your walls are already crawling with enemies, the real question is why you did not build more archers. And don't even get me started on the laddermen again. It's like they were designed by someone who really wanted to make medieval parkour a thing. Their success rate is so low that you could probably win a siege faster by sending your peasants to sing outside the enemy gates until they surrender out of sheer annoyance. Portable shields deserve a second mention just because they are the military equivalent of better than nothing. You have to babysit them across the battlefield, and even then, all it takes is a few fire ballistae or a well-placed trebuchet to turn your slow crawl into a smoking crater. It is like trying to cross a highway with a cardboard box over your head. To wrap up our tour through the discount aisle of the Crusader army, the Arabian Bowmen are the best-dressed losers in the bunch. They look competent, they sound exotic and elite, but they are just not worth the investment when cheaper spammy units do the job faster. They are the fantasy football pick that looks great on paper and then breaks their leg in the first game. Bottom line, These units exist, but just because something exists doesn't mean you should use it.
The units in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, archers, pikemen, macemen, fire throwers, siege towers, and tunnelers. You know those units in Stronghold Crusader Definitive Edition that make you go, well, I could use them. But then you immediately second guess yourself. Welcome to the C tier, the land of tactical headaches, niche usage, and units that require a PhD in battlefield micromanagement to shine. They're not useless, but boy, they make you work for their value. Let's start with the humble archer. Now, in theory, they're your go-to range defense unit. Cheap, quick to produce, and decent for covering your walls with arrows, but don't let their affordability fool you. Individually, they couldn't hit the broadside of a siege tower unless it parked itself right in front of them. Their damage is low, and they need to be fielded in massive numbers to actually scare anything off. Still, when perched up high on towers or walls, they make for good arrow spam that's safe from ground units, unlike spearmen, who get pancaked at the first sign of trouble. Next up, the pikemen. Picture a knight who forgot how to run and left his sword at home. Pikemen are tanks in this game. Slow, clunky tanks, but tanks nonetheless. They soak up damage like pros and can hold a choke point with impressive resilience when paired with proper range support. The catch? They're offensively mediocre and take resources that could be better spent on the much stronger swordsman. Unless you're running low on iron or swimming in surplus pikes, they're a hard sell. Think of them as the budget wall holders. The mace man, the medieval sprinter of the battlefield. Fast, aggressive, and armed with big metal clubs, these guys are perfect for surprise raids and catching unprotected targets off guard. But there's a snag. They use leather armor, which means they're directly competing with crossbowmen, who are, let's face it, a way better long-term investment. Plus, they require blacksmith gear, just like swordsmen and knights, so while they shine in short bursts or guerrilla-style raids, they rarely earn their keep in a prolonged siege. Now let's throw some fire into the mix, literally, with the fire thrower. These pyromaniacs look amazing when they're dousing buildings in flames, but their 100 gold price tag makes them more luxury than necessity. For the same price, you could recruit 20 slaves and start a full-on arson riot. Still, in multiplayer, a sneaky fire thrower can be surprisingly effective. While slaves are basically screaming, "Hey, I'm coming to burn stuff," a single fire thrower hidden in a crowd might just stroll into a farm and light it up while your opponent is too busy micromanaging somewhere else. And now, siege towers. Better than laddermen, yes, but that's like saying a paper shield is better than a napkin. It's technically true, but still not great. Siege towers let your units scale walls without instantly getting slaughtered, which is nice, but if your push fails, you've wasted a ton of time and resources, and your enemy shrugs it off like nothing happened. Compare that to just smashing the walls down with catapults or trebuchets. Now that's impact, literally. Let's dig a little deeper, literally, with the tunneler. These guys bring a whole new meaning to undermining the enemy. Tunnelers can collapse walls from below, which is extremely satisfying when it works. Problem is, they take forever, and they're easily disrupted if the enemy catches on. Still, on smaller maps, or when you're stuck on defense, sending a few tunnelers out can be the turning point. Just don't expect miracles on giant maps where everyone's got eyes everywhere. Back to archers for a moment. They really are the just good enough unit. Cheap bow-based bodies to fill the gaps in your defense. You won't win a war with them, but you'll definitely stall one long enough to get your real army together. They're the fast food of the ranged unit world. Bad for you long term, but hits the spot when you're desperate and broke. Pikemen, despite their flaws, actually have a weird charm to them. If you're into defensive turtle strategies, these guys are your shell. Place them behind a line of traps and archer fire, and they'll hold that line like their lives depend on it, which of course they do. Just don't ask them to chase anything, they'll get outrun by slaves. Macemen can be your early game panic button. If your enemy isn't paying attention, a couple squads of macemen rushing in from the flank can cripple their economy fast, kill the resource gatherers, torch a few buildings, and vanish before the counterattack. It's not glamorous, but it's effective, like medieval guerrilla warfare. Just be ready to lose a few of them in the process. Fire throwers, while flashy, need clever positioning to work. They're horrible in open battle. Seriously, you do not want friendly fire from one of these guys lighting up your own troops. But in tight corridors or during base infiltrations, they can be devastating. Just maybe warn your army first, yeah? Siege towers, when used in the perfect scenario, can actually win you the game. Send them in during a distraction or when enemy archers are elsewhere, and suddenly you've got swordsmen on their walls. But that perfect window is rare, and most of the time, your tower ends up as expensive lawn decor. And finally, tunnelers. They're patient, too patient. While the rest of your army is dying in dramatic slow motion, tunnelers are quietly digging under enemy walls, hoping nobody notices. But if they do get through, boom, your opponent's carefully crafted fortress just got a new basement entrance. They're not for every strategy, but when you do pull it off, it's glorious. So yeah, C tier isn't hopeless. These units won't carry your army on their own, but with the right mix of timing, support, and a little bit of mischief, they can punch way above their weight. You just need to treat them less like chess pieces and more like wildcards. The units in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right: crossbowmen, Arabian swordsmen, slingers, slaves, ballistae, fire ballistae, and battering ram. Alright, now we're getting into the B tier, the backbone of most armies in Stronghold Crusader Definitive Edition. These are the units you'll see over and over again, whether you're storming a castle or desperately trying to keep your own from turning into a smoking ruin. They're reliable, efficient, and, when used properly, can absolutely turn the tide of battle. Just don't expect miracles without a little strategy behind them. Let's start strong with the crossbowmen, arguably one of the most feared defensive units in the game. These guys are slow to reload, like take a nap between shots slow, but when those bolts fly, they hit harder than a drunken ox tamer on payday. Crossbowmen wear leather armor, making them surprisingly tanky for a ranged unit, and when perched atop a tower with crenellations, good luck getting anywhere near them. A late game castle bristling with crossbowmen is basically a porcupine made of murder. Your enemy's army won't reach your walls, they'll decorate them. Now, enter the Arabian swordsman, the frontline hero of any serious mercenary post-spam strategy. These guys are fast, armored, and hit like a medieval freight train. While their European counterparts are still tying their boots, Arabian swordsmen are already hacking their way into the enemy courtyard. Get a couple dozen of them into an undefended spot and they'll shred infrastructure, torch farms, and make a beeline for the enemy lord. They also make excellent patrol units if your outposts need a bit of muscle. Just keep their patrol routes short, or they'll spend more time jogging than fighting. Moving to the sling side of things, slingers are dirt cheap, cheerful, and surprisingly annoying. They don't have great range, and they'll never win a duel with crossbowmen or archers, but that's not their job. You use slingers like medieval mosquitoes, swarm the enemy, pester their troops, and slowly wear them down. They're especially good when placed on cliffs or in ambush spots, raining rocks on unsuspecting troops below. In large numbers, they'll even chip away at armored units. It's like death by 1,000 pebbles. And then there are the slaves. For just 5 gold each, these guys are absolute chaos goblins. Their stats are basically non-existent. They're weak, they're squishy, and they die in droves. But if even a few get through your enemy's defenses, it's fire festival time. Slaves can set buildings ablaze, and fires spread quickly if left unchecked. The key is to micromanage them once they arrive. Assign different slaves to different buildings to ignite multiple fires at once. It's not elegant, but it's effective. Watch your opponent's economy burn while your actual army takes its time arriving. On the siege side, we have the ballista and its spicy cousin, the fire ballista. Functionally, they're similar. Both fire massive bolts that annihilate heavily armored units and enemy siege equipment. The stationary ballista sits on towers, guarding your castle with terrifying precision. The fire ballista is mobile, slightly more versatile, and can shoot flaming bolts, which adds some flair to the destruction. Either version is a must-have when facing knights or siege rams. 1 or 2 well-placed ballistae can make your walls nearly impregnable. Let's not forget the mighty battering ram, which looks like it belongs in a history museum, but still has a few tricks up its sleeve. Rams are slow, awkward, and vulnerable. But if you can clear the walls and escort one to the enemy gatehouse, they become a problem your opponent must solve. Do they risk opening the gates to send troops out and stop the ram, or let it smash its way in and prepare for a full-scale breach? Either way, it's stress they didn't need, and that's a win in your book. Crossbowmen, despite their slow reload, dominate the battlefield simply because of their range and armor-piercing power. They force your opponent to make bad choices, rush and die, or wait and get picked apart. And once they're in towers, it's practically a mini-game of how many bolts until the invading army disappears. Arabian swordsmen don't just deal damage, they cause panic. When you see them marching your way, you know something's about to break. Their speed lets them exploit weak points and gaps in defense, and once inside, they cut through peasants and buildings with terrifying efficiency. They're not just units, they're walking game changers. Slingers, though basic, are highly cost-effective. Want to control a part of the map early? Flood it with slingers. Want to harass a quarry crew from the high ground? Slingers. Want to remind your enemy that rocks hurt? Slingers. They're not flashy, but they get the job done, like a pebble-powered machine gun if you stack them up. And slaves? Oh, slaves. They're not just units, they're distractions, they're chaos, they're a fire-starting army of mischief. Watching an opponent scramble to contain a dozen burning buildings while you're building up your actual army, that's the real win condition. Ballistae, both regular and flaming, are your castle's sniper team. Whether they're perched high or rolling in from the flanks, they are a hard counter to heavy armor and siege equipment. With good placement, they can even take down tower-mounted defenses before the battle begins. You'll rarely regret building one. Finally, the battering ram might feel clunky, but it forces enemies into awkward decisions. Letting the ram do its job means losing the gatehouse. Charging out to stop it can open the gates and let your own troops pour in. It's the medieval version of checkmate in 3 moves. So, B-tier units aren't about gimmicks, they're about presence. They're the core of many successful strategies, and while they may not be glamorous, they're reliable. In a game where timing, economy, and unit synergy all matter, these troops are the unsung heroes holding everything together. The units in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, swordsmen, assassins, and mangonels, catapults. If B tier units are your bread and butter, then A tier units are the steak dinner. Expensive, powerful, and absolutely worth the splurge when the time is right. These aren't your every match, spam them by the dozen type troops. No, these are the game changers, the units you build when you have a specific job that needs doing, and you want it done with extreme prejudice. First up, the swordsman. The Crusader swordsman is a walking fortress. He may move slower than your grandma in full armor uphill, but once he gets into position, he's practically immovable. These guys are built for defense. You slap them in a choke point or around your lord at the top of the keep, and suddenly your castle is a lot harder to crack. Their massive swords and heavy armor let them go toe-to-toe with almost anything on the battlefield. They're not flashy, but they're terrifyingly efficient. If the enemy gets past your walls and catapults and flaming everything, you'll be glad it's swordsmen doing the last dance. Then you have assassins, and oh boy, these guys are sneaky little nightmares. They climb walls, they open gates, they ignore a bunch of the usual castle defenses and just appear inside your base like, hey, nice economy you've got here. Shame if something stabbed it. Sure, they're not tanks, but their stealth and agility make them ideal for ambushes or coordinated strikes against the enemy lord. And if the enemy doesn't spot them in time, they'll shred even armored units with their lightning fast knife combos. Whether you're setting up a distraction or going for a surgical strike, assassins are your stylish answer. Now, let's talk about mangonels and catapults, the royal cousins of siege warfare. Think of the mangonel as the shotgun of medieval artillery. It lobs a cluster of rocks that can rain chaos down on approaching troops, siege engines, or clustered units. Mount one on a tower, and it's like having a rock-throwing tornado on defense duty. It's slower to reload, yes, but when it lands a good shot, the results are glorious. The catapult, meanwhile, is the precision instrument of destruction. It hurls one massive boulder at a time, absolutely flattening buildings, walls, and towers with satisfying force. Catapults are mobile, which means you can move them around to apply pressure where it hurts. Aim one at a gatehouse, and your opponent has to make a very unpleasant decision. Deal with it, or watch their front door explode. Cover its retreat, and it becomes reusable siege paint on demand. What makes these siege weapons A tier is that they do their jobs exceptionally well. Mangonels handle massed units and incoming siege. Catapults level defenses and force your enemy to respond or crumble. They're the blunt instruments of strategic control, and when paired with a proper army, they become the backbone of a winning assault. Bottom line, A tier units aren't about versatility, they're about specialization. Each of these units fills a very specific role, and if you use them in that role, they shine brighter than any other. Whether you're holding the line, sneaking behind enemy defenses, or turning fortresses into gravel, these are the tools that get it done with style and force. The units in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, knights, horse archers, and trebuchets. Welcome to the top of the food chain, the S tier units of Stronghold Crusader Definitive Edition. These are the elite, the MVPs, the ones that make your enemy question their life choices. They aren't just good at what they do, They define what good even means on the battlefield. Expensive? Usually. Hard to field in large numbers? Sometimes. Worth every ounce of gold and micromanagement? Absolutely. Let's start with the knight, the medieval juggernaut with horsepower, literally. Imagine the durability and raw power of a swordsman, but now he's mounted, armored, and fast enough to actually reach the fight before it ends. Knights are the ultimate mobile melee unit, capable of crushing siege engines, chasing down invaders, or spearheading a full-on castle breach. They cost the same as swordsmen, with the added horse requirement, and a single stable supports 4 of them. The only downside? They can't climb stairs, so you'll need someone else to clear towers. Oh, and don't get cocky, unsupported knights can get overwhelmed fast. Treat them like fast tanks, not invincible cavalry gods. Next up, horse archers, the definition of high-speed harassment. These guys are a raider's dream. They don't need stables, because they come with their own horses. Just buy them from the mercenary post at 80 gold a pop. Pricey? A bit, but get 20 or 30 of them galloping around the map, and suddenly your opponent's economy looks like it got caught in a blender. They shoot while moving, kite melee units with ease, and harass from beyond tower range. They're not built to take hits, so keep them moving, but if you manage that, you'll find they control the tempo of the entire game. And then we have the Siege King, the Trebuchet. These beasts are massive, expensive, and slow to build. But once they're up, they become the long-distance relationship your opponent really doesn't want. Trebuchets can't move after being constructed, but that's okay. They don't need to. Their ridiculous range lets them pummel towers, gatehouses, and keeps from a safe distance. Set up a couple on a defensible cliff or behind your main force and start the medieval fireworks. If your opponent doesn't have trebuchets of their own, they'll have to come to you, and that's exactly what you want. What makes knights truly S tier is their flexibility. Need to smash a siege camp? Boom. Send in the cavalry. Need to counter a flank or chase down fleeing units? They're already halfway there. They give you control over the map, pressure where needed, and make any enemy unit think twice before hanging around in the open. Horse archers, meanwhile, are like having a hit squad with ADHD. They never stop moving, never stop shooting, and never stop being a massive pain. If your opponent isn't actively trying to counter them, they'll quietly dismantle half the map before lunchtime. They're not just mobile archers, they're economic saboteurs and chaos incarnate. And trebuchets? They are why we all started playing Stronghold Crusader in the first place. Nothing feels better than watching a huge boulder sail across the map and crash into an enemy tower. They're expensive, they're risky, but they're pure medieval power. If war was art, trebuchets would be the paintbrush, and the wall is your canvas. S-tier units don't just contribute to your strategy, they are the strategy. Use them well and you'll dominate the battlefield before your opponent even realizes what's happening. The video ends here. See you in another video. Don't forget to subscribe.